Hey, everybody, off the Mic Sports Network here. So a very interesting conclusion to Monday Night Raw, with Seth Rollins standing tall ahead of the triple threat match to main event in WrestleMania Saturday between him, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk. And we all saw what happened with the famed chair shot to the back callback with Seth in the same Shield gear, well, variation on it. And it was very poetic. But I was thinking about one thing when I was watching this. What the hell is Jon Moxley doing? What the hell is Jon Moxley doing? Great, you're the world champion in AEW. But look at what this storyline has done. And I couldn't help but watch this. And I think I even said this to my sister as I was watching this. I was like, man, like this could have very easily been the Shield triple threat setup. And listen, I'm not saying in any way that Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose is in any way what CM Punk was. And this story has been fantastic. But I'm watching that whole Shield thing happen and I'm looking around and I'm like, and I'm seeing Seth just destroy people. And I'm thinking back to 10, 11 years ago when Seth broke out the Shield and was destroying people with the steel chair. He hit Roman in the back and then he just started destroying, you know, Dean, Jon Moxley, and just going back and forth. And like, yeah, Paul Heyman obviously added a different layer to this thing. But seriously, like I'm looking at this, like, and yeah, short term, Jon Moxley definitely benefited. But look at him now, man. Like, people can't stand this Death Riders character. And it's just like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Jon Moxley, short term for his career, made the right decision going to AEW. But when you look at this, here we are, 10 years to the day, almost to the day, when the Shield broke up. And we're getting a triple threat match between one of the guys who helped really make this group in CM Punk. And then you've got Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins in a main event. What do we always talk about with the Shield? That, hey, it would be great for them to main event at WrestleMania. We're probably never going to get that to ever happen. Unless Jon Moxley, like, finally gets his head screwed on right and gets away from Tony Khan, because it's not going to happen. Seth Rollins says he doesn't have a whole hell of a lot of time. Roman wrestles less and less every single year, which is fine. He's such a megastar that he can just come in and, the aura and the mystique that he carries with himself. But the window has closed. And this could have very easily been Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns in the main event of a night of WrestleMania. And don't get it twisted here. I'm not saying that what we're getting is a bad alternative. In a lot of ways, it could have been better. But if you just think about what has happened, like over the course of all of these things, hell, CM Punk went to the place that Jon Moxley did, then went back over, and now he's in the main event of WrestleMania. And who's to say if things would have changed, if certain things would have gone differently with Vince McMahon and the way the creative went and all this other stuff. But I said it on a separate video on this channel when the build was starting to this. It's like, I keep thinking to myself, what if Jon Moxley didn't leave? What if he didn't leave? How would this look? And he may never admit this, but he's got to be thinking in the back of his mind, like, even though he's the world champion of AEW, he's got to be thinking, God, my guys, my brothers in the Shield are in the main event of WrestleMania without a title on the line. And a guy that I don't like, CM Punk, is basically in the spot that could have been mine, and it's a much better story. Like, it's wild to me how this whole thing shook out, because Jon Moxley goes there. He was really the first big signing for AEW. And the guy who helped found it is in the main event of WrestleMania in Cody Rhodes, and he's the WWE champion. And then the other guy, who was one of the big time signings, who you faced in basically one of his last matches there before he came back, obviously, off of the brawl out and that whole incident. But one of the most noteworthy matches, and then coming off of that was, he's there and he's in a main event without a title on the line. And they literally just did the same angle, literally an identical callback. And the only thing missing from that whole callback, was Dean Ambrose, was Jon Moxley. That's it. And it's crazy to me that people still go to bat for him just because, like I said, in the moment, he was completely justified for making his decision to leave. Obviously, a shitload has changed since 2019 when he moved to AEW. But here we are, 6, 7 years later, and 2/3 of the Shield is main eventing WrestleMania. And what did we clamor for so many years? They had one main event match for the WWE Championship almost 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago in 2016. And that's all we've gotten out of this. So it's, in some ways it is poetic that CM Punk is the one who slides into this slot. Um, but it's just like, you can't help but, think to yourself, God, especially seeing where Jon Moxley and this whole thing with the Death Riders has gone with AEW. What could have been? What could have been? It's going to be one of the biggest what ifs in professional wrestling history. What if Jon Moxley didn't leave WWE? What if he didn't? Because like I said, he's had a great career in AEW, but you're only as good as what you're putting on currently. And what they're putting on currently with AEW and the Death Riders, it's one of the worst main event stables. It's one of the worst world title runs that I can ever remember. And then where you put that side by side against the two guys that he was walking side by side with for basically 7 years, and really compared side by side with in Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Seth and Roman are in the main event of WrestleMania. What's Jon Moxley going to be in the main event of All In as the world champion with no heat behind him? I said it before on this channel. The FTR in 10 days has more heat than the Death Riders have in 6 months. I'm not saying that this is a reflection. Some of this is like, maybe Jon Moxley has too much creative say, but also some of this is just Tony Khan has failed as a booker. And it's just like I said, you look at that ring and you look at it going off the air, it's hard not to think, what if Jon Moxley was there? Some people will say, hey, who cares? It's still, hey, he was a part of that initial moment. And, recreating that moment without him there was a little odd. It still was great, but it was odd. And like I said, it's a big what if. What if he didn't leave? Would we be getting the Shield triple threat here at WrestleMania 41? Granted, the alternative we're getting is fucking CM Punk in this match, which is just outstanding, and he's getting his first main event at WrestleMania with no title on the line. So, this is great, and I'm looking forward to it. But like I said, it's wild to me to think of where things have gone in the last several years and how we've gotten into this long and winding road to Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns in a main event of WrestleMania, and the third guy, CM Punk. Crazy. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.